In a complete change of topic, I'm not talking about S-bombs, I'm not talking about dependencies, I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I am talking about platform as a product. Oh, we're nearly there yet. And I know I'm the last talk before the tea break, so I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible, and I'll take questions just over cups of tea, if that's okay. So, quick introduction. Who am I? My name's Paula Kennedy. As Liz said, I am COO and co-founder of a company called Syntasso. We make an open source framework for building platforms called Kratix. If you want to know more about it, come find me after. I've got some stickers that I can give away, so please come chat to me afterwards and we can talk about platform engineering and Kratix. But enough about that. Let's talk about platform as a product. Are we nearly there yet? Sadly, the answer is no, not yet. It feels like we've been talking about platform engineering a lot recently. At least I feel like that. I'm probably in an echo chamber. But I feel like we've been talking about it a lot. And the specific topic around platform as a product is something I've talked about a lot as well. But it feels like even though there's a lot of talk about it and a lot of buzz, organizations aren't necessarily still seeing the benefits from their internal platforms and from platform engineering. So, why is that the case? What I wanted to do was actually take a trip back in time, maybe not as far back as 2009, but I wanted to take a trip back and think about actually how long have we been talking about this, because it feels for me like it's forever, but it's probably not forever. So we'll start with 2012. Okay, in 2012, I co-founded a startup called Cloud Credo. We focused on helping customers to get to grips with Cloud Foundry, which was an open source platform as a service, as opposed to a product. It was spun out, it originally came out from VMware, and then VMware spun out Pivotal, and it was then contributed to by Pivotal. And it was part of the Cloud Foundry Foundation, which was under the Linux Foundation, and still is under the Linux Foundation. So we started in 2012, and throughout 2013, what we did in Cloud Credo was we helped customers to use Cloud Foundry to sort of set it up, but really to think about how they were doing internal kind of platform engineering, right? We talked to customers about how they could be taking some software sort of development practices and putting those into their platform. Our CEO, Colin Humphreys, wrote a blog where he talked about the Cloud Credo way, but it was basically about trying to help customers have a more agile infrastructure and a kind of a better internal platform experience. We hadn't yet come up with the terminology platform as a product, but the engagements we were doing, we took product managers with us to customers with the hope that when we finished working with a customer, they would continue that type of practice. And we weren't the only ones doing this, right? Netflix were very openly talking about how they reorganized their engineering teams to have platform and product teams. And they were publicly blogging about how their platform teams treated the internal developers as their customers, right? They wrote about how they have a kind of a common API, which was like an internal platform as a service for their product teams. I've got a slide at the end, which is a bunch of links. And one of the links in there is a recent article from Adrian Cockcroft, where he talks about all the work that Netflix was doing throughout this period, like the early 2010s. In 2015, Cloud Credo was acquired by Pivotal. And so that gave us the chance to go out and talk to more customers. So the Pivotal customers using Cloud Foundry, we went out and helped them to understand what does it really take to see the benefits of an internal platform. My team was running kind of platform services across Europe. So we got to go out on site with customers, actually help them set up their platform team and really think about how they could collaborate with their internal developers to actually build a platform that would offer the services that those developers needed. And we also talked to customers then about how to drive internal adoption, how to do internal evangelism of the platform. We did a lot of that stuff throughout 2015. 2016 was when we tried to bring all this stuff together. So we took everything we'd learned from our platform services work with customers, and we also took some of our practices from our Pivotal Labs, which is the software development team. We put all of that together, and we published a white paper, which was called Why You Should Treat Your Platform as a Product. The paper's still available. Even 8 years later, it's got some really, really useful information in there. Another thing that happened in 2016, just to call it out, was the classic song PPAP was released. I did think of playing it and getting everyone to sing it, but after this morning, no. But anyway, if you fancy a little treat later, there is a link at the end to the pen, pineapple, apple, anyway, whatever. If you know, you know. Moving on. 2017. So we were working quite closely then with customers, helping them set up their internal platform. But at Pivotal, we weren't the only ones doing this, right? Others in the industry were also starting to observe these types of patterns. So at Spring One Platform in 2017, there's a great talk from Dave Bartoletti of Forrester, and he talked about 5 cloud-native ops superpowers, which is well worth a watch. There's a link at the end as well. He basically talks about the need for operations teams to move away from project thinking and think about product thinking. So this was kind of starting to be a movement within, at least within our ecosystem. 2018, there was a really good talk at Cloud Foundry Summit called Platform as a Product, How to Delight Your Developers and Deliver Value for Your Customers. That's a shameless self-plug because I gave that talk. But basically, it was a summary of the white paper that we had written, plus kind of more experiences that we'd had with customers, right? So there's lots of case studies that I referenced in that talk about how people were starting to see some benefits. 2019 was when Team Topology's book was published. Who here has read Team Topologies? Oh, yeah, a few. OK. So that came out in 2019. It started to provide a common vocabulary for people to talk about platforms and product teams and how they should interact. The platform as a product, it was mentioned in the book. It was just a small part of the book. But this whole book is around how to organize teams, how to collaborate, how to drive flow across the business. And this really started to push this concept more widely, and we started to hear more and more people talking about it. 2020, the State of DevOps report came out from Puppet, and this really doubled down on some of the concepts from Team Topologies, and it talked about product mindset and how kind of successful DevOps teams were those that were really treating their internal platform as a product. 2021, the folks at Team Topologies published an online training course for Platform as a Product to give you people a basic understanding of the concepts. The course describes, it says that it includes an understanding the platform value proposition, its customers, and the platform adoption lifecycle. So you start to understand that basically Platform as a Product is taking product management and the standard practices we've done in products and applying to platform. 2022. It was the first Platform Con organized by Humanitech, so it was a virtual event. More than 70 talks available on that YouTube video if you go and have a look. There was a common theme across so many of them, the case studies and some of the theoretical talks. Again, lots of people talking about treating your internal developers as your customers, applying a product mindset, how you support those platform users, how you evangelize your platform. There's all these common themes across these, like I say, 70+ talks. And some might say that 2023 was the year of platform engineering. In fact, Sam Newman was quoted as saying that by Charles Humble. But we certainly saw last year a massive explosion in talks about platform engineering, conferences. I think State of OpenCon last year had a whole platform engineering track. It just became like a huge, huge topic. Even the good folks at Gartner were talking about platform engineering and actually the need for platform teams to understand their customers' needs. So here we are in 2024, right? We've been talking about this for some number of years now. Surely by now, everyone understands what platform as a product is, and everyone is doing it, right? Well, unfortunately not. So why not? It's a question I ask myself a lot. I feel like sometimes I bang my head against a wall, because I've been talking about it for quite a long time. But why doesn't everybody get it, and why isn't everyone doing it? It doesn't feel like there's any easy answers, but I've got a few hypotheses. So first of all, it's not a natural thing for some people if they're in a platform engineering team. Some of these concepts are not like natural and they haven't been doing them for a long time. So you might have folks in a platform team who've got a background of infrastructure or sysadmin or ops who've never had experience in doing things like user research or design or that kind of like working on a product lifecycle from start to finish. Like it's some different skill sets, and therefore it might be harder for people to understand some of these concepts. and really understand, even for the maybe senior stakeholders, it's hard for them to maybe understand why it's important to have these practices on a platform team. It could mean, though, that to try to bring that understanding into the team, you might need to hire some extra people. You might want to hire a product manager or a designer or bring in a user researcher, right? These are all things that cost money. And right now, in the kind of current economic climate, it feels like spending extra money to bring more skills into a team is not necessarily popular. We quite often see as well that platform engineering teams are a bit underfunded because they're not necessarily responsible for bringing in revenue into the business. It can be a team that doesn't get enough funding, enough investment, because it's not seen as something that's revenue generating. Even in cases where the challenge is understood and there's money to fund it, sometimes people are like reluctant to change or to ask for feedback. Like if you're on a platform team and you suspect that people don't really like the platform you've built, do you really want to go and ask them? Or would you just prefer to not ask for feedback? I mean, there's a reluctance that people have naturally, right? People are scared of change generally. So sometimes it's hard to step out of your comfort zone and go talk to the people that are using your platform. So I guess the short answer is people aren't doing this stuff because it's hard. I mean, it feels like it's quite hard. So next question, is it worth it? Let's look at the data. This is my best mum joke. Thank you, I appreciate the laughter. So let's look at the data. I mentioned earlier the Puppet State of DevOps report, right? What else did that report say? Well, one of the quotes from the report said, successful platform teams were those that treated their platforms as a product. And they found that several platform teams kind of existed, but weren't necessarily being as successful as those that have a real product mindset. Okay, that's what Puppet said. What about other kind of case studies? I mentioned that I gave a talk in 2018 at Cloud Foundry Summit, and in that talk, I referenced lots of Pivotal customers who had published case studies about how successful they were being. Right? This is one example, this Canadian bank that was able, with their kind of platform as a product mindset, they drove adoption of the platform across multiple teams, multiple countries. They increased their deployment frequency. And that was just one case study. Right? In my talk, I referenced lots of other customers. And if you look back over kind of past YouTube videos, you'll find lots of customers that we worked with at Pivotal were very public about how the practices that we'd kind of worked on with them drove their success. But what about more recent case studies? Okay, in the team topologies course that I mentioned, they reference a case study from Uswitch, which talks about how Uswitch was able to grow both revenue and profit as they saw platform adoption across their business. Now, if you don't want to take the course, the video itself is available standalone. It's quite short, and you can watch it. And again, there's links at the end. And even more recently, so in last year's Platform Con, there was a case study from Susie Julius from Realtor.com. She gave a case study on how they'd been able to internally evangelize their platform. They got feedback from their platform users. And this really drove adoption, which created a huge success for them. And the presentation she gave at Platform Con was written up in a great article from Jen Riggins, so you can have a look at that as well. So let's recap what I've covered so far. The concepts around treating your platform as a product have been around probably longer than you think. The good news, though, is that because that's the case, there's loads of resources out there. There's lots of information that you can go and find for free, or if you want to do the course for cheap. My last slide, as I mentioned, has got lots of links, which I'll be sharing, so you can have a look and see all these different blogs and articles and sites that have got information. There's also lots of evidence out there that doing some of these practices will drive success. Right? So if you're in a platform team, or if you're in an organization that's trying to stand up a platform team and you're trying to build a business case for why this is useful and important, there's lots of evidence out there. Right? It won't take very much work to go and pull together a business case to say why this is important. But even with all that material and even with all those case studies, we've seen that it's still quite hard work. So, time for another question. How can we make faster progress? Good old Bob the Builder. How can we do better, right? How can we make this easier for people? I think it depends on where you're starting from. It's a classic consultancy answer. It depends, but it kind of does, right? I mentioned there's loads of resources out there that you can read and you can watch the videos and you can kind of get some understanding. But here are my top tips, let's say. Number one, I'd strongly recommend this book, Team Topologies. I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention, but I'm a Team Topologies advocate, so I'm probably a bit biased. But the book, even if you don't want to read the whole book, okay, there are lots of kind of talks out there that you can watch that will summarize some of the content. It's a really good starting place to just bring some ideas into your organization. I recommended to someone the other day, why not try doing an internal book club, right? So just like get a few people together, read a couple of chapters, talk about it, see if any of the ideas in the book would resonate and fit in with your organization. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to take the whole book like wholesale into your organization, but just start a couple of discussions. If you're further along in your journey, you already have a platform team, you're already thinking about some of these concepts, you might want to take a look at this. This is the platform maturity model that was published by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation last year. So this model talks about 5 different aspects and 4 levels of maturity. It's not designed to be a checkbox, right? You don't have to like pick where you are and then say, well, I've got to go and do all of these different things. It's not really for that. It's designed so that you can identify whereabouts you think your platform is on these different aspects, and then you can identify ways to improve it, right? It's a framework for allowing you to think, what are the improvements that you want to make to your platform? The group behind this is the Platforms Working Group, which is from the CNCF, and they're open to everybody. So if you want to get involved, if you want to contribute, if you want to talk to them, you can find them on the CNCF Slack channel. They're also currently working on some research around platform as a product. So if you want to contribute to that or get involved, then please do. They have regular calls that you can just join. But maybe you're at the point in your journey where you're super frustrated and you feel like you've got a platform team, you understand this stuff, and you are still kind of struggling. What else can you do? Well, maybe you could try to do something new. Or, as Yoda says, you can't try, do. Do or do not, right? So just be better, as Stephen Augustus said this morning, be better. So what can you do? If you don't already have a product manager in your team, then bring one in if you can. If you can't bring one in because cost or finding the right person is challenging, maybe have a look at like the jobs to be done and think, are there people in your team who have some of those skills that could take on some of these responsibilities? I mentioned earlier it's hard and sometimes scary to get feedback, right? But how else are you going to understand if your platform is actually working if you don't ask the people that are using the platform? So you could do a user survey. If that feels like a lot of work because you've got to think about the questions and there's a whole practice around how to do good user research, maybe a shortcut is to just take a few hours and go and sit next to someone who's using your platform, right? Just go and sit next to them, watch them, see what they do or don't do, and see if that gives you insights into what's working and what's not. You might actually learn stuff that you never even thought to ask. But as well as building the platform that meets your user needs, you do actually need to tell people that your platform exists, right? That's the other side of the coin. You need to know what people want and then tell them that you've given it to them. So you might want to think about setting up a community of practice, telling people what are the latest features of your platform and the feedback that you've listened to and now you've delivered something. You might want to think about ways to share success stories internally so that people get excited and want to use the platform. And the best way to annoy developers is to give them a really bad experience, right? So if you don't want to do that, if you want people to be happy using the platform you've built, you need to be continuously focused on developer experience. Whatever that means to your organization, giving people the best possible developer experience is going to make them happy, right? So one way to do that is maybe drinking your own champagne or eating your own dog food or that whole thing. It doesn't really matter, but as long as you are continuously, but it's not a once and done, right? You don't build the platform and say, well, that's it. That's perfect. I'm off now. You have to continuously focus on making it better. And that doesn't always mean just adding more and more stuff, right? If you've heard of the concept of thinnest viable platform, what you're actually aiming for is to give people the simplest, most frictionless way to get their jobs done. So it's not constantly adding more and more services. Maybe it's deprecating some things, right? Whatever's the simplest, nicest developer experience. Okay, hopefully, if you do some of these things, try some of these things out, you will learn and improve your platform, and then that will provide benefits to your whole organization, right? And you will actually understand platform as a product. So, if you want to learn more about that, you can come and talk to me. I will be here today and tomorrow. Or you can talk about dogs. My awesome colleague, Abby, is going to be here tomorrow. She'll also talk about platform as a product or dogs. She's also doing a talk tomorrow, and her talk is on only you can build your internal developer platform, but open source software can make it affordable to do so. So definitely grab her. If you want to talk to anyone else in our team who's not me or Abby, then you can book some time with us. We would love to chat all things platform as a product, I mean, that's our bag, right? We love it. This is all the stuff I've referenced. There's quite a lot. So the slides will be available after the talk. There's a bunch of stuff. There's also pen, pineapple, apple pen if you want a little dance. You won't regret it. I just also want to say a thank you to the JD Hancock website. It's where I got all the images from. They're pretty cool and available to you, so go check that out. And I am not going to take questions because it's tea time and I'm thirsty. So if anyone wants to ask me anything, then grab me over at the tea area and we can have tea. Thank you very much.